Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Thanks for listening to the show. Join your hosts, Bill Alvstad and Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Hey, hi, Seahawks fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers, here to talk Seahawks football. I've got a great show planned for you today, talking, of course, about training camp, what we're seeing this week at camp. This is our second of several different training camp updates. Welcome in, Keith. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Lots to talk about this week. It's been a full week since we were able to record because I went to the beach, and now there's a lot of things to talk about. A lot of stuff that's gone on. Where do you want to start?
I want to start with Sam Darnold.
Okay, because he's looked sharp.
Exactly. It's like, we just didn't know what we didn't know.
Yeah.
I think when we went through this offseason process, everything seemed on the up and up, and he was going to be kind of a lateral move, maybe slight step back from Geno, maybe a slight step up, right? You just didn't really kind of know how he would fit into Klint Kubiak's scheme. They'd worked together in the past. Is it what Mike Macdonald wants? Kind of a point guard kind of quarterback with some upside on the deep stuff. I think Sam Darnold brings all of that. And the thing that always has struck me with him, Keith, is the intangible stuff, the leadership qualities, the way that he lifts up his teammates when he's talking, takes responsibility for everything, a hard worker, gets along with all the guys, all that kind of stuff. That really is evident. And then in the 2 weeks of practices now, including the Fan Fest that was just yesterday, all I've seen and heard about Sam Darnold is just really good play overall. Now, yes, you're going to point to some errors. You're going to point to some interceptions, but also he's facing one of the best defenses and one of the best secondaries in the NFL.
And
Mike Macdonald seems like he's not.
When they know what is coming too.
Well, and Mike Macdonald doesn't seem like he's holding back. Like last year, I think he held back a little bit, and the installs weren't as advanced as they are now because this is year 2 and most of those guys are back. And so he's seeing a lot of stuff. And I think that was one of the things that I noticed the most of Sam Darnold is he had some early struggles, and so did the entire offense. But now, after, say, 10 practices or so, there seems to be a lot more balance between the offense and the defense. The defense is having some good days. The offense is having some good days. There's some outstanding and standout play by individual players on both sides of the ball. And that's kind of what you want to see. I don't necessarily mind the interceptions at all with Sam Darnold or Drew Lock or Milroe. They're all data points that come back into having that player be able to correct mistakes, make sure they're on the same page with the coordinator, and it gives you an opportunity to just have instant feedback. Obviously, something went wrong. Was it my fault, or does that defender just completely played an amazing play on that particular throw? So I was interested on what your thoughts are on Sam Darnold, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, and how you feel.
Well, he's been sharp. Now, you're saying he's sharp, but then you look at, okay, he's having a couple interceptions every practice. That comes with the territory. I hate to break that to everyone. Every quarterback throws interceptions in practice because you're trying to do things, right? You are, the coach will, in a rep, will be like, I want you to go here, no matter whether he's open or not. And so they do, that kind of stuff. So there's some of that. But when he's just asked to go run the offense, especially in the 11-on-11 drills or the 7-on-7s, he's been doing really well. And the offense has been getting the better of the defense a bit the last 2 or 3 practices. And that was not the case first week. First week, it was all defense. But it's good to see the offense catching up. And that's typical for most teams and most training camps where the defense, gets everything kind of figured out first and looks good. And then the offense comes along later. Offense is more complex. It's just the way it is.
So let's turn our attention to I was going to move off of the quarterbacks, but what do you think about Drew? I'm hearing good things about Drew Lock. Like he's just completely stepped up versus the last time we had him here on the roster, and looks like a very competent number 2 quarterback that can really step in and give you a game if you need to, and give you a chance anyway to win. I don't know that you could ask any more from a number 2 guy.
No, he's looked good. He hasn't been as sharp as Darnold, where, in terms of ball placement and, making all the right reads and everything, but he's been careful with the football. I think he's thrown 1 interception in camp, which, when he tends to miss, it's like, okay, I'm going to miss in a way that no one's going to get to it. Even if it's either my guy or no one. And so he's had a lot of incompletions in places like that, but he's done a good job with it. I've liked kind of what we've seen. There's no quarterback controversy, and there's no reason for one. He hasn't played well enough in practice for anyone to consider, he's outplaying Darnold. He's not. Darnold's been the better player, but he's been competent. I think that was your word, and I think that's a good one. Like he can come out and be competent enough for a game or two to give you a chance to win if your quarterback goes down. But he's not going to go lead you to the playoffs if you have to start him 17 times. He's back.
So the Jalen Milroe watch is mostly good and also coming back down to earth a little bit in the last few days.
The last few days. He's gotten back into some of the habits that you saw in his college tape, throwing off platform, jump throws. He had a jump throw that was 55 yards downfield, which honestly, with no base and you just jump and use all arm, that's freaking crazy to get the ball that far down the field. But also you don't have any accuracy, or, it's just a throw it out there and see what happens kind of play.
The good news for Milroe, though, is he kind of fell back into some corrected throws and platform throws the next day and at FanFest.
So he's up and down. I think what we saw, I think it was on day 8, was the worst of Jalen Milroe, with just throwing across his body and off platform and all this stuff. And he just was like, there was one play he was just trying to dump the ball off to, I think it was Brady Russell. Nothing was open downfield, just going to dump the ball off for, a short gain. And he sailed it way over his head for an easy pick 6. And it's like, he was 10 yards away from you. Just how do you miss by that much, that close?
I think it's because you're so far in your head, you can't get out of your own way. I mean, he's so skilled in when he's successful and he runs successful plays, and then so out of whack when it's not. It's got to be just a mental kind of focus for him. I think overall, you're seeing the things that you want to see out of a developmental quarterback. He's definitely on pace. I love his work ethic, Keith. Kids staying after practice. He's doing the virtual reality headset stuff on his own time. And all indications are he's definitely on track to be everything Seattle hoped he would be at this point.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that it's one of the things that when he had that bad day, I think Mike Macdonald said that they've really scaled back his playbook. And so the installation for him has been really slow. They're bringing him along really slowly with that. And they had kind of just dumped a bunch of stuff on him. They're like, okay, you've done good. Here's the next chunk of the playbook for you. And he went out and looked awful. And I think it may have just been a matter of, you're right. He's just in his own head. He's trying to keep track of all the different things. And at some point you gotta just play. But it's a learning process. I'm not down on him in any way. I still think there's a lot to like. I still think they're going to run out packages with him in the Wildcat, and guys running deep, because those are the two things he can do extremely well.
And he's going to get a lot of snaps in preseason, which can be fun to watch.
Yeah.
Let's quickly talk about the skill position groups on the offense. So wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, and then we'll get into the offensive line before we look at the defense. Obviously Ken Walker's been healthy up until a couple days ago. He's had a foot little thing. They held him out of the Fan Fest. All indications are
his foot's sore, but it's nothing serious. He said something like, if there was a game, I'd be out there. But it's practice.
Well, so. I hope so for his sake. It is just one more indicator, though, that, he does get preferential treatment for injuries that the other guys don't seem to need. Okay, so with that said, I hear that Charbonnet is having a heck of a camp, looking good. Yeah. Mike Macdonald praises, heaps praise on him about his work ethic, his availability, the way that he approaches each play, and on and on. So that's great news. Haven't heard much about Martinez. Haven't heard much about Holani for the most part. And then, getting back to Ken Walker, I've heard nothing but great things up until this point with regards to Walker as well. So it sounds like that room is pretty well established. You can add Robbie Oots to that as a fullback. It's all indications are he's got that position as the starting fullback on this roster, and they've just kind of moved forward with that. Brady Russell moves over back to the tight end room. I'm sure he could do some backup snaps at fullback if necessary. He was also the second team long snapper.
Yeah,
where
he was the emergency long snapper because Crystal's back was sore, so they held him out for practice, and so Brady Russell was in there doing the long snaps, which apparently he practices on his own time, and it's just one of those things that he's smart. He's like, when you're this far down on the depth chart, you'll do anything to make a roster. That's and if that means learning how to long snap, fine. And so they threw him out there, and apparently it was bad for most of it. He had some bad snaps because he's learning. And then he had a couple of really good ones, including on a 49-yard field goal that he hit perfectly. So obviously you don't want him. Hope. Yeah, you don't want him doing that. You really don't want him doing that. But if you absolutely have to, it's good that you have a guy that's practiced and done some of those things. And he kind of looks like he's going to be able to hold on to that third tight end spot now that Noah Fant's gone. And you see Arroyo and...
I think they're going to have 4 tight ends. I think he's going to end up being the 4th guy, and they're going to keep Barner, Arroyo, and Sobert. They've said nothing that would indicate that Sobert's job is in jeopardy at all. All indications are
they haven't said anything positive about Sobert.
No, I disagree.
It's like he's not even there.
Yeah, but you really listen to both Mike Macdonald and Klint Kubiak on Sobert, and it's all positive. Like the veteran leadership, the work ethic, the coming in, doing your job, being a good blocker, been around the league, special teams guy. I don't think his job is in jeopardy. I think he's going to end up being on the roster. I would say this. I think that Brady Russell is more likely to be cut and then brought onto the practice squad as kind of a shadow guy where he can be brought up on game day for a few weeks. We'll see how it plays out after that. And move around the roster that way. But I think Eric Saubert's making this roster, just from what I'm hearing.
Okay.
Let's talk about wide receivers, man, because
now that's an interesting room.
Yeah, Torrey Horton is ascending. Like, according to Mike Macdonald, he's making multiple plays a day in this offense, and they really, really like what they're seeing. And indications are that he's going to be the number 3 wide receiver in this offense from day one.
Not Valdez Scantling, which is surprising a little bit, just because
nothing that Scantling is doing wrong.
Yeah. And it's not like he's having a bad camp, because he's not. But it when they're shifting into different personnel groups, Horton is being used as the third wide receiver with the ones right now. And when they went to 13 personnel, which is 1 wide receiver and 3 tight ends, he was the wide receiver, which I thought was interesting, because I'm like, you wouldn't put JSN out there. And I think it's because Horton is bigger and faster. And therefore, if you're going to run 3 tight ends and go play action and to take a deep shot, you want the guy that's capable of doing a deep shot.
Yeah. Or you put Bobo out there because you're going to, try to shut off one side of the field with a cutback block or something like that. But I'm so happy for Torrey Horton. I mean, you didn't know at the beginning of training camp if he was going to be ready. He wasn't ready for mini camps just a month earlier. Comes in and dazzles everyone. Like his ability to run routes, his hands, his work ethic.
His hands have been crazy.
His playmaking ability is just crazy. And he's also going to be our punt returner, it sounds like.
Yep. And there was one catch where I think it was Locke who threw it. And the moment he threw it, because Horton was just completely covered. And you're like, okay, there's no chance. And you see Horton jump, reach back behind himself, behind the cornerback who's in great coverage trailing, and catch the ball with one hand, get his feet down. And you're just like, that ball, that there was no chance that was going to be caught. Like that had like a 0% chance of being caught, but yet somehow he made a play on the ball, and it's like, that's crazy.
Yeah. Good news for the offense. I mean, we really did need a legit third or fourth option to step up. And the rest of the roster has had its challenges. Bobo, while he's been a good special teams guy, hasn't completely stepped up yet. He's given an opportunity this year, but Horton's outplaying him for those snaps. Tariq Young has been a guy that
Tariq Young's finally showing up.
Yeah. I was going to just say, he's had 3 years to kind of try to figure it out. And it looks like he's finally found an offense he feels comfortable in. Mike Macdonald came out and said that he has just really worked his ass off. And he's created this opportunity for himself, and he's really happy for him. And when Mike Macdonald says something like that, that kid's making the roster. That's what that tells me, is he's in that 4th, 5th, 6th spot on the roster. I don't know exactly how many wide receivers they're going to keep. I think they're going to keep 5, but he's definitely in that conversation now, where we earlier had kind of ruled him out.
But because he plays special teams. He's a gunner. He does great that. They've got him returning kicks at the moment, which is a bonus for him, because if you can get another job on special teams like that, that just makes it easier for you to make the roster. And he's making plays on offense, and he's got that height speed combination that teams look for. It's why the previous coaching staff at one point were moving him all over the field. They had packages built around him where he was lining up at fullback and then going out to run routes and stuff like that. Because athletically, he's like, he's a kind of a special guy, but he's never been healthy. And when he's been healthy, he hasn't managed to get open when he's got his few snaps on offense. So it's always been, we'll see with him, but he's finally healthy for a training camp. He's finally really showing well. And I like that he's given himself a shot, because the athleticism there, it's gonna be fun.
So there's a kid I want to talk about, an undrafted guy. There's other guys that we could talk about. Obviously, Cooper Kupp and Njigba, they're having great camps, and there's really no other reason to talk about those guys right now, because they're just doing their jobs, and those guys are going to be at the top of their game when the season starts. But let's talk about. I was going to talk about Steven Sims for a half a second, but yes. Let's talk about Tyrone Broden, the guy from Arkansas that's 6'5" and runs a 4.38 40 at 215 or 20 pounds or whatever.
Talk about size speed combination.
Yeah. Well, and apparently he's Jalen Milroe's favorite target in training camp so far. And I guess he's just making play after play on the ball and receptions and touchdowns and beating coverages. And this guy is not going to be ignored. He's literally going to, for him, he's going to play himself onto the practice squad, because I don't think there's any chance that he's going to make the 53, But I don't think they want to let him get out of their system, and they want the opportunity to continue to develop this guy. And I think that is already kind of the path for him.
See, his problem was he had a 2-route tree. He could run a go route and he could run a post pattern, which is essentially a go route, just angled. And then that was he runs really good in straight lines. But when you're 6'5", 220, you're not gonna be able to cut quickly. You're not gonna. No one's gonna mistake
you. Can't sink your hips very well, right?
Yeah. But what he's shown is that within that, he can make that work. And so you look at the plays that he's making, especially the ones from Milroe, they're all deep shots, and he's getting past people. He's getting open. He's making, corners struggle because of his combination of speed and size. He can get up and get after the ball, and he's got good hands. So there's ways to use that on a football team, even if he isn't great at in cutting or out cutting routes or anything like that. Sometimes you just need a deep threat, and he can definitely do that. He was a guy that the more he does this, the more I wonder if a guy like Valdes-Scantling ends up not making the roster, because if Torrey Horton's going to win the third job, and that pushes Scantling into his only job is really to be deep threat guy. And if you've got a guy that's significantly cheaper and faster and taller, that maybe you run with that instead and you let Scantling go. And I don't like that answer, but you've got a bunch of wide receivers that kind of deserve roster spots and not enough roster spots for them.
I think I disagree only in this respect. And that would be you want some experience, especially the first of the year in a new offense, and the injury history of Cooper Kupp and so forth. I think they keep Scantling over a guy like Broden because you can get Broden onto the practice squad. He's not ready for prime time. He's not going to be on a roster, anybody's roster, day in, day out, 53-man roster for an entire year. He's just not quite there yet. I could be proven wrong in preseason, and I'd love that. But he's the type of guy that you want to keep on your practice squad for sure. And Scantling's the type of guy I think that you want to keep on your roster. And expense-wise, Scantling signed a $3 million deal. It's not like it's absorbent. It's not a huge amount. I would be more worried for Jake Bobo and Ricky White, and Cody White and Steven Sims. Those guys are deserving of getting more snaps, and I think we'll see them in the preseason, but they could be playing for other teams and other opportunities. I think that room is interesting at the bottom end there for guys that might stick as a fifth wide receiver on somebody else's roster.
So if you're looking at the receiver room, right, you got JSN and Kupp at the top, Horton is 3. If you're keeping Scantling as 4, right, that means you've got 1, maybe 2 guys after that.
Yeah.
So
and Tariq Young and Bobo are probably the inside track to do that. Ricky White's looking like a practice squad guy. Cody White, Steven Sims. The only reason Steven Sims is even in the conversation for me is his special teams play. But he wasn't on the roster last year, so I'm not extremely familiar with his special teams. If he has, if he stands out above all the other guys, trying to do that as well. And then Tyrone Broden, haven't heard much about Montori Foster or Nate McCollum, or John Reese Plumlee. I know Plumlee's been making a few plays, but he's so far down that his hope is practice squad. So we'll see.
Well, he's a converted quarterback, so he just made the full-time switch. So for him to end up on a practice squad where he can spend a year just as a receiver and just learning the receiver things, that would be great for him.
I think so.
I'd love to see him on the practice squad. But yeah, I think Cody White's probably done because Tariq Young is kind of outplaying him for the same body type role.
Right.
And Ricky White's looked fun at times, but how do you fit him on there? You're right about Jake Bobo. Like, who doesn't like Jake Bobo? Everyone loves Jake Bobo, but where does he fit? Right? Because you're keeping 3 quarterbacks, which you don't normally do, right? You have to take another roster spot somewhere off the offense.
You're going to keep a fullback. It looks like you probably would keep 4 tight ends and 5 wide receivers.
Yeah, if you're also keep a fullback, so that's 2. That's why I'm thinking 3 tight ends maybe. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard because the fullback and the third quarterback they take up roster spots that used to go to that 6th wide receiver or that 10th offensive lineman, and now those spots don't exist anymore. So yeah, it makes it really hard.
Speaking of offensive line, according to Greg Bell, the starting offensive line, if you take Cross out of there because he had a little finger surgery to correct a dislocation, a reoccurring dislocation, but he's expected back by the first week. Josh Jones is taking those left tackle snaps, then left guard Gray Zabel, center Oluwatimi, right guard Anthony Bradford, and right tackle Abe Lucas. That's your starting offensive line as of the 10th practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anthony Bradford at that right guard spot kind of has won it by default. Christian Haynes, the last 2 practices, has taken 0 snaps.
Well, he's got an injury. So I read this morning right before.
Yeah, he's got a shoulder injury.
He's got a pec. It's minor. Coach said it shouldn't take him much longer to get back into it, but the timing wise, it's not good.
Lumen has not asserted himself at all. Cable Do has not asserted himself at all.
Correct.
And so it's where does Sundell land? Does he end up taking that spot, or does he take center spot, or does he end up as the team's first backup at all 3 interior spots?
Right.
Really comes down to Sundell, because everyone else has sort of just fallen off. And Haynes has not stepped up and taken it, which is really kind of sad.
It is sad. And I'm not sure exactly what that means. I'm sure he'll work himself back into the competition, because that's usually the way it happens, hopefully. And we could see him in a small little rotation at some point in the early season. And then Sundell, I think they really like him, but they and you and I've talked about this before, this Anthony Bradford issue. According to most reports, he just kind of remade his body this year and got a little bit more agility and lighter in his footwork, but his pass pro is still suspect, but he's the best run blocking lineman that we have on the entire offensive line. Is that the way you're hearing it and reading it? And they seem to have landed on him at this spot. You said by default. Regardless, he's there. How do you feel about that? I
don't like it because he doesn't fit the scheme. And yes, he's gotten in better shape. He's trimmed down a little bit. He's no longer up at 335 where he was, but to say that he's the best run blocker on the offensive line is a joke, because he wasn't at any point. He has the potential to be an absolute mauler and drive guys down the field, but he misses too many blocks by leaning out over his toes too far, and he gets shed really easily by defensive tackles. So no, he's not the best run blocker on this team. That goes to either Cross or Lucas, depending on how healthy Lucas's knee is. So yeah, I mean, it really comes down to, this is a team that has 3 offensive linemen, and they're trying to figure out who the other 2 are, and there's not a lot of great options.
I disagree A little bit. I think Olu has kind of shown himself. He showed himself on the back end of last year. He kind of took this job and won it by all accounts so far in training camp. There really hasn't been a push to push him off of that starting spot at center. So I think that, they've got 4 legit offensive line starters on this roster, and they still
hasn't even won his own job.
According to all reports, and Greg Bell, he's the starting offensive center.
Yes, he was the starting offensive center. He worked with the ones at the FanFest scrimmage. But in camp, he's splitting time with Sundell with the ones.
But it's been less and less.
It hasn't
in
been.
the last 3 days.
It hasn't been.
Okay.
And practice 9, it was perfect 50-50. And then Sundell was also getting second team reps at right guard. So they were running him, because he's in both competitions. And so Olu hasn't even won his own job. The idea that we're just going to pencil him in as a starter, I think, is premature.
Okay. I'm just taking it from multiple reports, including Bob Condata and Greg Bell and Corbin Smith, that he's won that job at this point.
No, he hasn't won it. They wouldn't be running Sundell out there with the ones half the time, taking half the number 1 snaps if Olu had won that job. He was, like I said, in FanFest, he's still ahead of Sundell, so he got the reps during that scrimmage. But I heard
in the 2 practices before FanFest that was kind of the pattern. But I'll trust what you're saying. But no, I also heard that from multiple sources that he's been getting more snaps with the ones in the last 3 practices, including FanFest.
Well, they've taken Haynes out of the rotation. So he's no longer, doing much at center, except for occasionally with the 3s. And so it really comes down to, those 2 guys, but it's been pretty mixed as far as who's getting the snaps. Now, Olu gets the first set of snaps with the ones, which tells you that he's ahead and it's his job to lose. But it's not like he's it's not like we're Gray Zabel. Gray Zabel does not leave the field when the ones are on the field. He is always there. Same with Abe Lucas, and same with Charles Cross before he dislocated his pinky finger. Olu is still coming off the field when the ones are on there, so that Sundell can get reps with them. And it's not where Sundell's getting like 2 or 3 a practice. It's close to 50-50.
So there's a ton to talk about on defense. Let's get into it right away. So one thing, I'm just going to lead with speculation right off the bat. The whole Micah Parsons thing. From Dallas, he's apparently trying to request a trade out of there. The other day, we texted back and forth a little bit about Terry McLaurin, potentially the wide receiver from the Washington Commanders, wanting to make himself available for a trade. And that might be interesting for this wide receiver room in this offense. But when Micah Parsons said that he wanted a trade, that really perked my interest, because I know for an absolute fact that Mike Macdonald and John Schneider would want to be in on that deal if it should be serious. Because he's a difference maker at 27 years old. He tilts the field. He's a game wrecker. He's had over 12 or 15 sacks in each of his first four seasons. He's got massive pressures and quarterback hits. Probably the best the premier defensive end pass rusher in the league right now. And it would take a lot of draft capital to bring him here, and maybe a player swap or two. Just your thoughts overall on the team potentially going for a player like that and adding him to this defense that's already premier.
You add a guy like that to a defense, and it doesn't matter that you're taking someone else off the field. He's the best player, and so he's gonna be on there. I mean, absolutely a difference maker. A guy that you watch. There are times when he just takes over games that you'll see him get upfield and in a quarterback's face for 3 consecutive plays, and then the other team has to punt. And you do that late in the game when you got a lead and they're trying to come back, and now suddenly the game's over and you win. And he's the type of guy that can do that. And so I would absolutely love it. Now, what do you have to give up? You probably have to give up Derek Hall.
Or Boye Mafe, one of those two.
Or Boye Mafe. One of those two. I would say
plus 2 firsts, probably.
Yeah, plus next year's first and the year after. And you'd have to give Parsons a contract that's up around $40 million a year. And wow. that is where the sticking point is. Because giving up all the draft capital and all of that for a guy who's in his prime, you're not trading for a 30-year-old, you're trading for a guy who's 27 and stays healthy. I'm okay with that, but you have to pay him. And
we do have the draft capital right now, and the way contracts are constructed in the next couple of years, 26 and 27, I think that contract could happen, and still sign everybody and re-sign and extend everyone that we currently have on the roster. It would just take away the draft capital. We're very restricted already next year. We've got 5 draft picks, and in 26, or excuse me, in 27, when you have slight instability at the quarterback position. Like, I know that Sam Darnold, I mean, it's solid, but also it's hard to predict the future. Like, is it Jalen Milroe or is it going to be Sam Darnold? It probably won't be Drew Lock, but with that uncertainty, this is the type of move you usually make when you're getting ready to contend for a Super Bowl. If they made this move, Keith, what would it do to the rest of the roster, especially the quarterback position?
Well, I think what it does is it basically tells you that Jalen Milroe isn't going to be the starting quarterback, at least not for a couple of years, because you're not going to turn over the offense to a guy, a developmental project, when your defense is built to win a Super Bowl right now.
Right.
And so they're going to run. They believe that they can run with Darnold and get the job done and get there. That's. I can't see any other scenario other than that, because if they don't think that Sam Darnold is can get them to a Super Bowl, you don't make that trade because you're not ready for it. You sit back, you wait, you develop Milroe, and then when Milroe's ready, you go and make that trade. No, it won't be for him. It'll be for someone else, but there's guys available every year.
What do you say to people that say, well, there's Trey Hendrickson or there's Thibodeau could be made available if you miss out on this? Is this a necessary move for a Mike Macdonald defense that was already going to be top 5?
It's already going to be top 5. It's not a necessary move. And you're right. And Jadeveon Clowney is actually out there and had his best season in a few years, 2 years ago, in Baltimore with Mike Macdonald in that defense. So there's a possibility that he could be the depth signing to replace Nwoso.
Would it be a mistake to go after Micah Parsons and sign him to a multi-year deal that's going to essentially blow up your foreseeable future in cap space and decimate your draft capital for a couple of years?
That's hard. That's a hard question. I would say at this point, probably, because I don't trust the offense is ready to compete for a Super Bowl. Not with the way the offensive line is, not with Cooper Kupp and, all his injuries being your second best wide receiver, and not with instability at quarterback. I would rather have the salary cap space and the draft capital, and to go with Boye Mafe, who
you're going to have to pay him though too next year.
True, but he's not making $40 million.
but he's also lives in the middle class of the NFL. And so do you really want to pay? And he will make money, right?
Yes.
I mean, he's going to make top 10 money out of his position, even though he might not be a top 10 edge rusher in this league.
Well, his contract is going to be what Nwoso's was before he took his pay cut this year. That's where he's going to be. He's going to be in that level. He's not an elite pass
27
rusher.
or 30.
No, he's going to be like 19, 18 at the absolute most.
No. I mean, if he has a 12 sack season, let's have another conversation in December.
Does he have 12 sacks in 3 seasons?
Well, yeah, I think he does actually. So
he's not an elite pass rusher.
Right.
And he's not going to get paid as an elite pass rusher.
At least not by this team, hopefully. That would be my only pause is you get a surefire all pro, best at his position in the league, and you don't pay Mafe. So you really only pay the difference. For me, you pay that difference and you get twice the production. And I think it, but I will say this, leading back to the where the offense is at, you make this kind of move when it's the last piece, right? And it solidifies your run to a Super Bowl for 2 or 3 seasons. If Seattle believes that he would be the final piece on defense and they can continue to get the offense refined in the next 24 months, but hopefully in the next 12 months, they could get into the playoffs this year, maybe win a game, get to the NFC Championship game, and then next year be ready to compete. That's where you make this move. I think you have to believe in your offense.
I think the defense is good enough. I would rather take that $40 million that you're going to have to spend and go buy the 2 best interior offensive linemen in the league and plug them in at center and right guard and give yourself an absolutely elite offensive line for the same money. That's my take on it, is that if you want to go win a Super Bowl, you don't use that money on Micah Parsons. You use it on your offensive line.
That's a hard message to hear because, splashy versus practical, but you could definitely be right. So let's talk about splashy though. Let's talk about some of the other players that are really making names for themselves on the defensive side of the ball.
Like Nick Enemwari.
You got to start with Nick Enemwari, don't you? Like Mike Macdonald raves at him. Here's a quote from Mike Macdonald. We keep giving him stuff and he keeps executing. You have to be mindful that you don't take a playmaker out of the player. That's something that is on my mind. He just keeps learning and keeps executing and keeps making plays. He's got great enthusiasm. And anytime you've got a coaching point for him, he's very receptive towards it. We've said this kind of ad nauseum here, but he's just a really fun player to coach. And I would go beyond that and just say, this dude is going to be a playmaker for this defense this year, Keith, and it's going to be hard to keep him off the field. I think initially you've got Kobe Bryant and Love that are going to be quote unquote starters. But once Enemwari starts to get rolling and get, the game speed down and so forth, and he just starts making plays, I don't know, like they're going to run 3 safeties all the time so that they can keep him on the field.
Mm-hmm. Or you're going to see them in order to keep him on the field, take Kobe Bryant off and move Julian Love back to free safety, and do some of the things like that. Like they're gonna have to find ways to get Enemwari on the field because he just keeps making plays. That quote that you had after it, what he said is that a lot of it is like what they're teaching him is, here's what, as the designer of the play, as the coach, this is my big picture, what we kind of want you to do. But they don't tell him to go stand here or go do that. Like, let his instincts take over. We know we want you to cover the tight end, but what does that look like? That's on you, and go figure it out. And so far he's just doing really well with it and making a lot of plays, getting a lot of picks, which is great to see.
So the other player that's really standing out to me is a player that's a little surprising to me, but not if you really dig. And that's Lawrence, that defensive end. Looks like he has plenty left in the tank. He's giving offensive linemen real difficulty trying to slow him down. And the run defense is really improved when he's on the field. You know, he's been injured, and I think that you kind of just put a lot of weight into that aspect of acquiring him this offseason in free agency. You didn't pay him very much compared to players of his quality. He's a little older, but he's everything that you would want from a player like that as a free agent. Come in, be a leader, work his ass off, actually be one of the best players on the field when he's out there, and take this defense to kind of another level.
Yeah. I love it. I love the fact that he is staying healthy and doing all those things. I think that when you get into game situations, you meter his usage a little bit. You're going to want, if the way he's been practicing and the way what he's been doing in practice, you're going to want him out there every snap, but you can't do that to him. You know, get him out there 20 snaps a game and let him be really good when you need him to be good, and then keep him rested and healthy. Because you've also got Mafe and Derek Hall, right? You've got guys that can flat play out there too. So there's no reason to leave him on the field too much and get him tired out and get him hurt. So I think between the three of those guys, you've got a nice rotation. Just none of them they all need to stay healthy, and they'll be fine.
Another guy that's popping, that's an undrafted guy. We'd mentioned Tyrone Broden on the offensive side. The other guy on the defense is Jared Ivey. Talk about him for a second. Yeah,
Jared Ivey's been every bit kind of what I expected. I mean, I guess listeners of the show know that I thought he was like a 5th round pick, 4th round pick, not just draftable, but where he gets in the 7th round or whatever. No, I mean, he was like a mid-round pick who fell, and I expect him to come in and especially when that happens, right? People are telling you you're going to be like a 4th or 5th round pick, and then you don't get drafted. You just get hungry and you get humbled, and you get in and you work your ass off. And he seems to be doing that, and has kind of made his case for getting on this 53-man roster and staying there.
Agreed. So the other guy, let's stick with the defensive line for a second. I think the other guys are kind of showing up this year. It is good news for Seattle. One of them is Mike Morris, who we talked about as a guy outside looking in, especially with the addition of Riley Mills eventually being able to come in and play. And then that addition of Jared Ivey, those guys kind of all can play the same position and do the same sort of things for that defense. Essentially, they want them in there to stop the run, set the edge, and give you a little bit on the pass rush, but that's not your primary focus. No. And then Brandon Peely is a guy that I think they really hope can come in and hold down the fort for Hankins when Hankins hasn't even practiced yet. And we really kind of need Brandon Peely to come in and really take over that spot at the nose tackle spot.
So far, Peely's been the number one guy, and when they get into short yardage, goal line kind of situations, he's the nose tackle. When they're doing stuff where it's like, the simulation is 1st and 10 or, 2nd and 7, it's either Reed or Murphy at the nose tackle spot. They're not running with the big traditional nose tackle, except for in the shorter stuff. And if that's how they're going to run this defense, then Peely makes a lot of sense, more sense than Hankins does, because of just young contract upside, lack of injury. In fact, he's actually practiced.
Right.
And so I could see him making the roster, and Hankins being let go.
So I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to see if you and I have the same answer. Name one player in the secondary, safeties or corners that that nobody's talking about, that for an absolute fact is going to make this roster?
Nobody's talking. Oh God, because people are talking about everybody. I mean, could say Devon Witherspoon, but now he's making the roster. Like people talk about him.
How about D'Anthony Bell?
Yeah, he's the fourth safety, making plays, making his case to be the fourth safety, and he does a lot of stuff on special teams and has shown up and done more as a defensive player than I absolutely would have ever expected out of him. I think he makes this roster as the fourth safety.
I do too. I think Jarek Reed, as much as I think he's going to be a good kid. People were pounding the table for him prior to the draft where he was selected. I think it's D'Anthony Bell because he gives you the diversity and the thumping quality that you're looking for out of that spot. It's like, Mike Macdonald wants his defense to be physical. He wants guys to be able to make plays and move all over the place. And he's one of those guys, and he just shows up every day in practice and makes plays. And a concern, I think, if we're, not all rose-colored glasses stuff here, is that Shaquille Griffin has yet to practice with this team. What's going on?
That's not true.
I thought he didn't practice. He was sick, and then he left for
He was there
reasons.
for a couple of days, and then he left for personal reasons. He came back,
and that
for
was a
one
week
day,
ago.
And then left. He's due back tomorrow.
Okay. I had not heard that.
Yeah, he should be back tomorrow. I don't know. Nobody knows what those quote unquote personal reasons are and all of that. But
it'd be nice to have him have some time in the defense.
Yeah, it would be nice.
I've heard more from Damarian Williams than I have from Josh Jobe so far in camp.
You know who we haven't heard anything positive about? Jeremiah Pritchett.
Yeah.
And
I heard one thing. I heard he had an interception on it. He jumped a route and had an interception, but that was it.
Yeah. I've also read that he's gotten beat for touchdowns deep. A couple, multiple times. So, definitely not his best showing yet, but.
Okay. So Thursday in Seattle, you've got the Las Vegas Raiders coming into town, some familiar faces. What do you expect the reception will be like for Mr. Pete Carroll and Mr. Jaxon-Smith?
For Pete Carroll, it's going to be a standing ovation. Absolutely. For Jaxon-Smith, it's going to be a loud cheering because I think he's kind of earned that. I don't think it's going to be as warm as for Pete Carroll, one, because it's shorter, and two, because he asked out. And so, like, the fact
the reception for Jamal Adams, non-existent.
Either he'll get booze.
I don't think you're going to boo a kid like that,
or he'll get nothing. Because people won't remember he was on the team because he never actually
gave you anything. I mean, in order for somebody to get booed, he'd had to give you something first, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad for the guy. I'm glad he landed. I think, it's kind of one of those, come on and do your veteran presence thing. And after camp, we'll cut you, but at least you had an opportunity to show up and be a part of a camp again. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he stays healthy and he just has a big impact. He can have a big impact. He just doesn't stay healthy enough to really find a spot. So we'll see how it goes there.
You have to use him right. You've got to use him up at the line of scrimmage and those kind of thing. And when he was in Seattle, he was either not healthy or they were trying to use him like a normal safety. He's not a normal safety. He's more like a linebacker. You got to get him up near the line of scrimmage.
Well, that's all fine and dandy, Keith, but he doesn't have the body to successfully be implemented that way and stay healthy. So you got to pick your poison with him. You can't put him back into coverage, although you could keep him healthier if he was covering and not tackling all the time, being physical and working his way through traffic.
Yeah, but he's not good. He's not good at that.
Right.
So why
That's
would
what I'm
you?
saying.
Why would you ask him to do the things he's not good at? You ask him
because
to do
if
the
you
things
could
that he's good
surround
at.
him, if you could surround him with a whole bunch of really good players, I think he could potentially do that for you and stay healthy and kind of be on the field and impact certain plays at the end of games in other ways. But if you play him up to the line of scrimmage as a box safety all the time or an off the ball linebacker, he's not going to hold up a single game because his shoulder is going to pop out.
Yeah. Or what you do is you use him as a third safety. You don't start him. You don't play him very much. You bring him in certain situations. And
I think he'd be a good nickel guy, in kind of a slot scenario, but that's it. I mean, we got a game coming up this week. We'll stop by again, I think, Keith, and preview that, although there probably won't be much to preview. Mike Macdonald's come out and said he's not going to start any of the starters, and they will not get any playing time, which is, to me, slightly unfortunate, especially on the offensive line. But other than that position group, I could care less. I would really like to see some snaps of continuity by that offensive line, but I think maybe we'll see that in game 2 or 3. And first game is just going to be allowing players that are in these position battles and at the depth positions on this roster to give a chance to those guys to show out in a game.
So if Oluwatimi does not play,
that's a good sign for him.
Then you know he's won the job and it's his. You put it in pen. If he does play, then that tells you that he has not won that job. He is not a starter yet. So keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm. I will say this. I've heard that Amari Kite has been taking number 2 team reps at right tackle, which is interesting because it's a guy I don't know anything about, an undrafted rookie free agent signing, and he's already number 2 in the depth chart at right tackle. And that would be over a guy like Cabledew and Richmond, and I think Gerald's over there at left tackle.
Yeah. So
primarily.
So when that happened, because he was the third right tackle, but they moved Josh Jones from the right tackle with the 2s over to be starting left tackle with the 1s, and so he got promoted. Gerald is the left tackle with the 2s.
Yes.
Cabledew is not a tackle. He's a guard, and so to me, like, this was one of the issues coming into campus. They just didn't have a lot of depth at tackle. So I'm not surprised that you see an undrafted guy there once an injury happens, because
I mean, you can say Michael Gerald was the number 2 left tackle, but Josh Jones is taking all the snaps there in Charles Cross's place. So he's, in essence, the number 2.
Yeah, but tackle. He's been he and Jones have been the backup tackles. They're the 2 that have played with all the 2s. And so, yeah, Jones gets the snaps first with the 1s, because he's going to be your swing tackle who plays both. And so he's going to be the guy available on game days. And so you want him ready.
Maybe we should do a preemptive roster prediction show after the first preseason game, or the second one. Because
should do one after the first. Do a quick one after the first game, just because it's fun and it's guaranteed to be wrong. So,
and sometimes after the third game, those roster cut downs happen fairly quickly, and we don't have time to get in and do a proper show. So that'll be interesting. Let's get out of here. It was a good show. Everyone's caught up now on the comings and goings of training camp. It's game week, so all the prep work that the team does to get ready for games will be just like a regular season week for these guys now. So that'll be fun to watch. And I'm excited to watch a certain amount of players in this preseason game, although none of them are going to be starters, according to Mike Macdonald. So, all right, let's get out of here. Find Keith on Blue Sky at Myers NFL. You can find me at NWC Hawk. The show is Seahawks Playbook Podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform and our own YouTube channel, and hit that subscribe button when you find us. And that way every show ends up in your feed. And that's the best way to ensure that you don't any episodes. So until next time, go
Go
Hawks.
Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NWSeahawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.